Hello and welcome to the special broadcast. We are counting down to the Interpol's 90th General Assembly ahead of their centenary celebrations next year. And who better to talk about that than the Secretary General of the organization. Mr. Stock, thank you so much for joining us. The viewers of CNN News 18, the country, Indians all over are excited because this is happening only for the second time that India is getting a chance to host it, and first in the last 25 years. But what's the mood like at Interpol amongst the delegates and the office bearers?
I can say, first of all, thank you very much to the government of India, the CBI, the Central Bureau of Investigation, the people in India for welcoming Interpol, our member countries, so warmly. We are excited as well being here. Of course, we haven't had a General Assembly in 2020 because of COVID. And for international law enforcement, it's important that law enforcement officers from all the world have a chance to meet in person, networking, exchanging experience and discussing how we can tackle organized crime, terrorism, cybercrime in the future, because one thing is clear, globalization of crime will continue, the role of Interpol will become even more important, but without direct contact, without knowing each other, it's impossible. So we are excited being here, and wonderful opportunities are provided to Interpol. The organization is perfect, and we are very much looking forward having a most successful General Assembly.
Is that the USP of the Interpol? You have 195 members, I think more than the United Nations. Your longevity is more than United Nations. Perhaps you're the oldest international organization which has managed to survive. What is the USP? What is the mantra for the success of Interpol?
I think the mantra is still the same that led to the creation of this organization. The first international criminal police conference in 1914, 1923, as you said, when Interpol was created, the idea is still the same. Criminals are operating on a transnational level, they are crossing borders, they try to hide, they try to move their criminal assets, and international law enforcement is more important than ever. We need to cooperate on an international level to tackle that type of crime, to make sure there is no safe haven for criminals around the world. And we know every gap we would leave in our international police cooperation would provide opportunities for criminals. We have seen that during COVID, they are exploiting any gap we are leaving, and that again is why the mantra, connecting police for a safer world, has not been changing, but of course our environment has been changing. Technology is one of the key words.
But are there no political challenges? I mean, it sounds all good that all police organizations across the world are coming together, multilateral platform, bilateral negotiations. But this is a world, this is the General Assembly that is happening in the backdrop of the Russia-Ukraine war. Are there no political challenges that you're facing? Because the West is not very happy with Russia. At every multilateral platform, they've asked for action against that country.
We are first and foremost a technical organization. We are not a political organization. We leave political issues to be dealt with by politicians. That's the first principle. The second principle is neutrality and independence. And the third principle is, of course, we have to respect national sovereignty. What does it mean? When member countries are deciding to use Interpol, they have to make a commitment. They are applying to our rules that we are having. And it is the role of the General Secretariat under my leadership to make sure that this is the case, that all member countries, when they are using Interpol, they respect our rules and our norms. And that has been the guiding principle throughout the existence of Interpol. It's still the guideline, of course. We realize, and it was a topic at the very recent UN General Assembly, we have geopolitical tensions currently, but nevertheless, to catch criminals, to rescue victims of child abuse, we need to cooperate, and that is what Interpol is about. We are providing a neutral, independent platform which member countries can choose to use. Of course, they are doing it intensively, more intensively than ever, but of course they can make a decision with whom to share, how intensively to share, but this platform, again, is more important than ever.
You know, you do say that, politics is out of your purview, but then this is a body which has elections. You elect your decision-making body, and there are diplomats involved in those elections, campaigns as well. In that backdrop, let me be specific. Was there a demand to throw out Russia out of the Interpol before this General Assembly? Did any country want Russia out of this event that is happening here?
I mean, the topic will be discussed here in Delhi as well, but again, we have to focus on our neutral and independent position as a technical police organization, trying to leave politics out. Of course, we operate in a certain political environment, that is quite clear. But it's also clear, and I repeat myself, any gap we are leaving in international police cooperation will be exploited by criminals. There are plenty of examples. Crime today is global. Cybercrime is global by nature. Organized crime groups operating globally like criminal global enterprises. The only chance to push these organized crime groups back to fight international terrorism, cybercrime, is international police cooperation. Whatever the political system is, Interpol is providing a neutral, independent platform that member countries can use. And we have to stick more than ever to these principles that allowed Interpol over the last almost 100 years to grow to 195 member countries with very different systems.
Did I get you correctly? Did you say that whether to allow Russia to be part of Interpol or not is something that will be on the table when 195 countries and their delegates meet for the 90th General Assembly?
No, I mean, we are also discussing our international police cooperation in light of this conflict.
But this is also an issue?
On this, in light of this conflict.
Right.
And of course, but again, Interpol's principle is neutrality, it is independence. We are a technical police organization. We have to focus on that part and to leave politics for the politicians.
Right.
But we need to discuss impact. We need to discuss to which extent, for instance, criminals can exploit any crisis around the world. But of course, it's specifically important, of course, to stay to these principles, especially when member countries are in a conflict with each other. Of course, more than ever important to stick to the basic principles of Interpol.
So if I have to break that down for our viewers in simple terms, if you throw out any country out of this Interpol arrangement, your apprehension is that that black hole could become a safe haven for criminals? Is that one of the views?
Again, any gap we are leaving in international police cooperation will be exploited by criminals. That was already the case. That is the reason why Interpol over the decades has been growing to 195 member countries, because every country is aware we cannot fight crime in isolation. No region can fight crime in isolation. We can only make the world a safer place, and that is the basic mission of Interpol. If, despite the fact that we are coming from very different political systems, sometimes despite the fact that there are conflicts, we have a technical, independent, neutral platform that is called Interpol, and member countries decide to which extent to use them. They can decide not to exchange with a certain country, so we have opportunities to even deal with difficult situations between member countries.
Now, let me draw your attention to something that has been raised as a matter of concern ahead of this General Assembly, which is the issue of somebody who's been proscribed as a terrorist. The name is Gurpatwant Singh Pannoon. He's associated with an organization called Seek for Justice. Indian police organizations, including our National Investigation Agency, which deals with terrorism, has requested the Interpol for a red corner notice against him. And very recently, we have learned that Interpol has refused to issue that. Now, if you could set the record straight as to why this has happened, because a lot of people here in India are making all kinds of allegations, including saying that this is the hypocrisy of the West, that you don't really care for our terror concerns, us in the third world.
Yeah, I mean, I ask for your understanding that I cannot comment on individual cases, but the principle is, again, that Interpol has a kind of limited mandate. It is strictly forbidden for the organization to enter into any activity that might have an overwhelming, predominantly military, political, religious or racial content or meaning. We have to strictly stay away from that. And that sometimes leads to the fact that we decline a request from member countries for cooperation. I understand that that sometimes frustrates member countries, but it's important. That is the basic principle and part of the success story of Interpol, that we all respect that limited mandate, which doesn't mean that any decision for Interpol not to be engaged in a case is a judgment on the merit of a case or any decision taken by a court. No, that is not our business, but we have to check the compliance with our rules. Again, Interpol has a limited mandate, ordinary law crime, that is our focus, and anything else, member countries can use other channels if they need international police cooperation, others than Interpol, but that is the limited mandate which we have to respect, and this is part why, despite all the geopolitical difficulties during the last decades, Interpol was only growing because this principle was respected.
But I hear from Indian government sources that in this particular case, they could go in for an appeal. Does the Interpol constitution allow countries to go in for an appeal? Should Indian agencies be hopeful that in this case also an appeal could be met favorably?
I mean, we have a certain mechanism, of course, in place that member countries can be heard. We have a mechanism in place also that subjects of a notice, for instance, can reach out to an appeals body and can challenge the decision taken by Interpol to publish a notice. That framework exists and of course is being used. Yes, of course.
Okay, my last two questions to you. Since we are talking about the red corner notice in this particular case, for the common man here in India, it is the red corner notice, the various other notices that they know about Interpol. They don't know much others about what does this organization really do? What is the USP, so to say? Why is Interpol needed in today's world?
I mean, it's needed because criminals and terrorists simply are, in today's world, more than ever, acting transnationally. They are even acting across the continents today. The red notice is definitely amongst the most kind of famous, well-known instruments that Interpol is having and its member countries. It allows arresting hundreds and thousands of criminals every year around the world. So murderers, drug traffickers, those who are exploiting children and others that are committing ordinary law crime, an extremely powerful instrument, of course, extremely successful. But again, we all, and me means the Secretariat and its member countries, have to respect that it's being used for these ordinary law crimes, so for limited purposes. All the other is for other ways of international police cooperation. But again, extremely powerful, extremely successful, and in a proper legal framework.
Right, Mr. Stock, thank you so much for explaining to viewers of CNN News 18 and Network 18